4 months ago, at the Brooklyn Peace Fair, we, the North Fork People of Conscience, a small group of activists from the North Fork of Long Island, installed the Honor the Fallen Memorial, an exhibition of large panels, each holding the names, faces, and obituaries of 18 American soldiers who have been killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. At that time, there were 160 panels. Today, there are many more. Leah, a senior at Brooklyn Friends School, who volunteered to help with the installation, contacted us a week or so later to ask if we would consider bringing the exhibition to her school. What you are about to see is the end of this story. You will see the panels in the hallways of the high school, where they remained for 3 days, and you will hear the students and teachers talk about the effect the exhibition had on them. Although North Fork People of Conscience are the custodians of the exhibition, this project represents a wonderfully harmonious collaboration between us, the Peace and Social Action Group at Brooklyn Friends School, and Conscience Films, whose dedication, sensitivity, and skill produced this documentary for us.
I helped set it up on Sunday, and I was working mainly on the 3rd floor, and by the time we had one wall completely done, I just kind of took a step back to look at it, and I really didn't think that I was going to get really sad and emotional about it, but I didn't get sad. I got really angry, and honestly, like, I haven't followed up that much with the war. I know what is going on, but like Larry said, the girls in the Quaker meeting, like, I haven't really let myself understand exactly like what it means. And
but you became angry because
it's so many people, and this is nothing compared to what it is. Like, it really isn't. And I wasn't looking at the faces and like reading the names as like, oh, this was a soldier. And it's true, like, you think soldiers choose to go to war and they choose to fight for their country, but no, like, these are regular people. And they're like, what has the outcome of this war been? A lot of people are wondering, then what's the good of it? This is the outcome, that's it. Like, nothing has been resolved except a lot of people have died.
So after 2 days, today's Wednesday, are you still angry, or has your emotions changed?
I mean, I've gotten used to seeing it. I don't notice it as much as the days have gone on. But I still, when I'm walking through the hallways, so I'll read oh wow, this person died on my friend's birthday.
So initially I was surprised, but it wasn't for the reason that I was surprised to see all these faces, because I feel like as children, or as teenagers in the age that we live in, I just feel like we've been really, really desensitized to this sort of violence and to the stuff that we see, because in the media every day we do see lots of images of death and stuff, and we see reports from war, and I feel like it's kind of lost on us. The issues don't really matter in our country anymore. It's sort of boiled down to just party versus party, Democrat versus Republican. And it's people just see the world in 2 colors, like I said before. People see the world in red and blue. And it's not really even about the issues anymore. It's not about the people who died or about why we're in the war. It's just about sort of proving your point, almost.
Personally, I didn't like this. When I first came in there on one day, I didn't like having seen, especially on every inch of the walls on the 2nd and 3rd floor. I didn't like seeing it. I wouldn't have objected to it as much if it was on a lower scale. I wouldn't have minded it as much. I probably would have taken a look at it, observed it, and probably would have given my thoughts about it. I wouldn't have such a negative approach to it if it was on every wall that I go on every day.
When you see it on such a huge scale, it just gives you this initial reaction that it's intended. The intention is not to honor the soldiers. The intention is to shock you.
I think that it's awesome. This memorial. I think that it needs to be this big. It needs to be in your face. It has to be. A lot of people, when we were putting it up, people were like, oh my God, what are people going to think? The Republicans are going to be really upset. People are going to be shocked and really upset about this. So what? You have to be upset. Why shouldn't we be upset that all these innocent people are being killed? we should be upset by it, and if we're not, then we should recognize it so that we become upset about it, so that we can want to do something to change it. Because like I said before, it stinks for us because this is our generation and this is now going to be in our hands. And if people don't care about it and don't have things in their face this big on such a large scale, seeing it and feeling upset about it, then nothing's gonna ever change. Because who else is gonna fix it? Like, we're the people in this country. We're going, this is our generation. It's happening during our time. We have to do something about it, otherwise nothing can be done.
Because it's so much, it almost feels like you're being manipulated to go to one side. But everything in life that's such a big deal, there's big things and small things. And it's just another emotion to experience, and after you feel it, after the shock is worn off, you start to synthesize why were you so either insulted by it being in your face, or why you thought it was so great to see this, it's opening your eyes, or it's forcing you to wake up. But I didn't find it offensive. When I was looking at it, I was happy it was there, because I don't like looking at most of the junk that's on our walls in school. And this, it seemed connected to the rest of the world, because obviously this is a private school and it's very small, and most of the things people think about are nowhere on this level. And it's just because it's there, I feel it's making me want to do something about it. It's almost, it's inspiring. I don't want anyone I know when I'm older to be a face on a wall, because people talk about how no longer there's statistics, there's a face to numbers. But I know a lot of times if you draw something, it's doodles of face. This just seems like a bunch of pieces of paper with faces on it triggering some sort of emotion. It's still not real. I can't, my mind just is not able to comprehend bodies being there, and because I don't understand it, it's and it's so much, and it's causing so much pain, it can't be a good thing. So what I want to do about it is I don't want it to happen ever, at least, or I want to do as much as I can to stop it from happening again if I can.
I didn't want to come to school on a Monday morning and have to be depressed seeing how many people died during the war. It was just another way of making my Mondays even worse.
You don't want to come to school to be depressed, but I think that, honestly, that's such a small thing. Even though we are going to be upset by this, we don't feel it as much as that man's wife or his daughter or something. We don't feel it. And a lot of us probably don't know people in the war who have died, and we're never going to have that feeling. And I think being depressed for 3 days that it's up in our school and having the slightest bit of feeling that so many other people are really, really experiencing, I think it's worth it. And I think that maybe if that's what it takes for everyone to feel a little depressed for 3 days.
No, I've talked to my friends about it. We've talked, about what the message is and stuff. And actually, what you said, it's not about pro-war or anti-war, but I feel and it shouldn't be. It definitely shouldn't be. And I think that's the point of an exhibit like this, is to not be pro-war or anti-war. It's just to show these are the people, here's what they did. They died for what they believed in. We should respect them and we should honor them for their sacrifice. But I just feel it has such an intense anti-war connotation to it that I feel it sort of corrupted the message of the exhibit in of itself.
How am I want to be part of the society when I'm older, but how am I going to fit into a world where so much bad is done and it's so everyday, even this in the hallway, this is just it's going to be something and then it'll be gone, and I guess I need to think about this a little bit more.
When I first stepped in and I just saw all these faces, it was just oh wow, just initial shock about especially our classroom walls and just being used to what's usually in the hall. And it was definitely conflicting emotions. My two conflicting emotions were, one, to be either feel sadly about what's going on in the war and the casualties of war, and what has to be the cost of some people like in our country making decisions about what they feel is the right thing to do, and my supporting the people that are there. Like, I always feel that I will support what the people that are fighting for us, not necessarily what the people that are making the decisions are doing, but the people that are willing to necessarily protect or serve for our country. So those are kind of the two conflicting emotions. On the first day after, by the end of the day, you're kind of wrapped up in your academics, and you don't necessarily have all the time to pay attention to them. But I feel that every time that I do see one of the pictures, it does make me think for however long that I have time to think about what's going on in our country and what's going on in other countries and what we are doing. If it wasn't there, then I don't think that I would be thinking about it as much as I have. I took time to look at their names, see where they're coming from, see who they're survived by, and their ages. The age was definitely one of the things that you paid attention to.
What specifically, yeah?
Like me being 17 and someone 19, someone 20, that's not that far away from me. Right. So you could just like picture yourself like, oh, I could in a few years be in the same situation as them. Well, not necessarily myself being in a situation, but just relate to them age-wise, or maybe they came from Brooklyn, New York, or Manhattan. So
I haven't really talked to people about it because I think that generally there's been a very good reaction to it, and I really don't agree. You hear that this many people have died during the war for this, this cause that is not necessarily good, and which I totally agree with. I don't think it's a good cause. I'm completely against the war. And that when you see the faces and read the stories, like who have they've been survived by and how old they were when they died, that really has more of an effect on you than hearing the number, which makes sense. I don't think that's a good thing. And I see this outside, and yes, you're making it more personal, you're seeing their stories, and that is just, to me, that is extremely disrespectful to the memories of those people. Because they aren't people anymore, they're a cause. You make it more effective, but you don't make it more effective that we feel bad for them, you make it more effective that we feel bad that their lives were sacrificed for something that we don't believe in. And that just really, we don't know them. We have no right to mourn them. Even to me, when I hear the number on the news, first of all, it's not disrespectful to them as people, because you don't hear like this person died and was survived by their 2-year-old, and it's tragic, but when I hear the number, the fact that I can't really comprehend that many people died for something that I don't believe in, and that they might not have had a choice, just the fact that I can't comprehend it makes it that much more important to me. I think that the way to mourn that part without being disrespectful to them as people is to hear the 3,500 or on the news, or to hear that a bomb went off in this place and this many soldiers died, and Jesus, that many soldiers died. The alternative is to have them on the news, not the people, I totally understand it, and I think it's with the best intentions that, you have the pictures and the stories and I think it's in good intentions, I can tell. But I think that the way to do it is the way that has been done, I hate to say this, but by the media, because I'm not usually a supporter of our media. Just having the numbers come back, or having every day consistently when I watch the nightly news, seeing that there are more people dying every day, that in itself is really scary to me and really makes an impact on me. And so doing that has an impact. And so having them doing more on top of that and taking their faces and their stories and their families and pulling that into it just seems like you're causing more grief to the families. It's disrespectful to their memories.
I think that maybe what you were trying to say is, are we trying to connect with them on a personal level that we don't know about them, or that it's their family's position to do because we're not their family necessarily?
Personally, I would be extremely offended if a member of my family was up there. I suppose it is a memorial, but I think more than that, it's, from what I can tell, it's about getting a message across. It's not so much about remembering them as people, it's remembering what they died for.
I guess I was sort of prepared for it, but not completely. I didn't realize there's one hallway upstairs where it's just everywhere on either side of you. And it's kind of hard to describe the way I felt. I imagine it's something like being haunted. And then I started to go around and read them, and there's no way I could read them all or even look at them all. Like, some of them are, places I can't reach, but even if I could get to all of them, there's so many, and I kind of feel like I'm failing them because I can't look at them all. And there are also some that stood out. Like, there was a girl who died when she was the age I am now, when she was 18. So it's kind of strange to think about. Mm-hmm. And there's also a girl who, it's a personal picture, so she's dressed up and it looks like, she looks like a prom queen, She looks like a girl who's just gonna go off and do all these great things. Well, it wasn't just that she was female, it was just that she was so young, and she looked like, she was going to her high school prom. I guess particular faces, but also just the feeling of walking down that hallway with both sides of me, kind of like, I think it's too easy for people to just, hide in their sports pages and not pay attention to it at all. It's not something that should be pushed aside the way it has been.
And I'm extremely grateful for all your hard work in bringing this to the school. I think it's a very provocative and...
Provocative is a very good word.
Very brave, and I think it's a very, very forthright things you've done. I think I really commend you on what must be a lot of hard work. I said that what I'd felt in walking around the corridors here these last 3 days is I felt angry. And I felt angry since the war began. I remember feeling just boiling up inside when Britain decided to join the war. There I was teaching in England at the time. I've been in the States now for 2.5 years.
But what was this girl today in the meeting, in your class? She said something. She
didn't make any judging statement. She just said that her brother had recently passed into the Marines, and that she was very worried that he might join those faces on the wall. As a teacher, I don't wish to impose my politics on others. You have to be very, very careful. You might upset some kids. I asked the kids on Monday morning, my little 9th grade advisees, what they thought, what their initial reactions to it were. A couple of them said that they were upset by it, that they didn't want to be reminded of all this death, that it was enough to read the figures in the newspaper and be informed of it in that way. They felt rather jarred by it, I think, initially. It's taken a little while to get the kids to come out and speak about it. And I'd like to ask them at the end of the week, when they've had the time for these images to settle in. I think it stirs one to have emotions, and I think it's of what you've done is a provocative thing, but it's not overtly political what you're doing. If you were to hang "Let's End the War" banners around the school, yes, that's a political act. But students and adults and whoever can make of it what they will, because it's asking one to confront these images of those who have fallen in service of their country, or in service of freedom, or in serving whatever cause we are fighting for in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's not denouncing the war, it's not saying we should withdraw our troops, but it's stirring kids to talk about it. I said today in meeting, I said, you can think of these pictures as you will, but it's an arresting sight for all of us. When we came into the building on Monday morning, we were arrested by these images. It stirs us to say something about them. I hope that you will stop in the corridor on your way to and from class and shake your friend and say, what do you think of this? And whatever opinion you might have about them is no matter, really. What's important is that you are jarred and you're provoked to speak. And I've heard them. You overhear conversation. You hear a ninth grade girl in passing or so she stopped at one picture and said, "This soldier never even met his child. His child was born before he came home." And they do. They stop.
Leah, I think you should just recap for us how this whole thing started. When you came to Brooklyn, you saw the panels. You would think. Yeah. Did you immediately think of
anyway? I would work.
Yeah.
Actually, my initial reaction to it was, I got up early the Sunday morning just to go volunteer at the Brooklyn Brooklyn Peace Fair, and it was not really in my mind at all that anything could come out of it at the beginning of the day, and I guess I was going to also help with the other exhibit, I forgot what it's called, but it's the one with the booths.
The booths, it's a Quaker one, actually, that one.
Yeah.
The booths,
Yeah, so originally I was going to do that, and then they sent me to help you guys, and I just was really taken aback by it, and I guess the numbers, for me anyway, they do justice, but I felt like they weren't enough. And then to see all of those faces, and even while putting it up, I didn't really think about it. It was more just like, let's all work together and put it up, and with the other volunteers who were really great. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, once we were all done, we kind of stood back from it for a second, and in that moment I realized, like, wow, this is...
It was the perfect place for it, because it was just stretching,
yeah,
you know.
It went on
all
forever.
The outdoor space, yeah.
And it was just really, it was frightening, but at the same time, like, really powerful to see that. And I guess then the next week we had Quaker meeting, and I was thinking of saying something, but I didn't ever say anything about it. And I kind of had wished that someone else from our school could have been there to see it. And that's when I kind of got in touch with you. I think, I don't remember the order of events, but I brought it up with the Peace and Social Action Group, and Dory Dietz, she kind of said, oh, you should pursue it, see what happens. And so I then used the sheet that I had and emailed you, and then that's kind of, I guess, how it started. But originally I didn't have that intention until I realized that, I mean, seeing that like moment where I was amazed by it, like I didn't know even how to react almost, and like I felt even if I could share my experience with just some of the students, that would be good. I guess my main goal for this exhibit was to get students talking and make them more aware. the outcome of whether they completely reject the memorial or love it, I mean, that was a risk that everyone was taking, but I felt like the most important was just to get students talking, because I feel like sometimes, like, and I include myself in this completely, like, we can get really caught up in just everyday life and forget that there are all of these, like, bigger things that are going on in the world, like the genocide in Darfur, and just there's so many things going on, and I think it's really important to recognize that. I was surprised by the range of opinion.
Well, can you talk about what that range was? Because you heard more of it than we did today.
Yeah, actually, in the Harlem Renaissance class that I guess Jamal and Gwen spoke about earlier, that was kind of the moment where there was real tension within the group, and one student thought, well, like, war is kind of human nature, and like we have to support it if it's going on. And then another student was like, no way, like that's such a cynical way of looking at things, like war doesn't have to happen, and this is, and plus, like, then we got into thinking about, well, what are the real reasons for why we are at war, and it kind of spiraled into a discussion from there. But and people got really passionate about it, and I was excited to see the passion in it, in the discussion. Some people feel like the memorial, this was what I was kind of surprised by, that they were completely offended by the memorial, and I was hoping that no one would be offended, because that wasn't my intention at all. And
what were they offended by exactly?
They were offended that we were possibly like glorifying it, or not glorifying, but by putting faces on the wall, it was like a celebration, not a celebration, I don't know, it's hard to, I didn't fully understand it. In a way, I feel like it would be better if we had the consent of the families to do this. And I think the third floor, I mean, if you look at that wall going all the way down, because that's the largest flat space we have,
right,
and that's pretty powerful. So. The hardest thing for me personally was the risk involved. Like, I had no idea. Like, at the beginning, I was thinking, like, wow, I really want to share my experience. Not that I was thinking everyone was going to have a similar experience, but I wanted to share this with the community. And I thought also it's appropriate because we are a Quaker school, and as a Quaker institution, we do believe in peace and nonviolence. And so I thought this is a powerful thing, and it would be great if it could come to our school. But then as it got closer and closer, I started to have some doubts about it. And my main concern was how the students were going to react. And overall, I think it was good to do. Not everyone is going to agree. Especially on opening night, we had...
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that.
Yeah, we had about 10 people come through.
And who were they? Were they parents or others?
Parents, and then a few people who had heard about it in the other building. So it was a mix of people, and then one who works at Friends Seminary, which is a Quaker school in the city. And then it was like everything was quiet, and so it was really, it presented a whole different aspect. And Lizzie was there. She helped me and stayed with me.
It was dark, it was late as well, right?
And it had a different feel to it completely.
And did it feel haunted?
It was a little bit, it was a lot, even more like wrenching kind of than scary.
The reaction that we heard was people saying things like, I wish there was less of it. I wish it wasn't on every wall. It was just everywhere. And, I don't know if that was somehow threatening to people in some way, especially the boys.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I'm not sure. I feel like because we contained it to the hallways, which I think is really good. We didn't put it in any classrooms, and we did that.
Or on the stairs, right?
Yeah, and I think the stairs, by having the stairs be like how they normally are, that kind of, it's a time when you're transitioning between floors, that gives you a moment to kind of step back from it, I guess. I think that's part of the exhibit, is to show the quantity of faces.
But I'm just wondering what you think for those people who are saying, I wish it was less, I wish it wasn't everywhere, couldn't they have contained it, couldn't they have made it just one floor? What do you think was going on for them when they were saying that?
I don't know, maybe some fear of just the quantity, because it is a scary idea. And I guess if it was contained to just a room, they wouldn't have to, it wouldn't stare at them as much. So
This was very in your face, is
Yeah.
what's one of the words somebody used.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what the point of this was,
Right.
to show, hey guys, look, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that is happening in the world.
And that's the thing, is they did understand that, they got it, but then they
Yeah.
wanted to run away from it and they couldn't. There was no shelter
Right.
kind of thing,
Right.
I think that's what was
I think
going on.
that's also why I think 3 days is the perfect amount of time.
You were absolutely right about that. I had no idea what you were talking about
Yeah.
when you first suggested
Yeah.
it. And so the other thing, so what has been the best thing for you? I mean, do you feel it's not quite over yet?
Yeah, I guess the best thing is having people come up to me and I've been several teachers also that I've had, because I've been here from kindergarten, so several teachers from the middle school and other places have just kind of come up to me and said, this is great what you're doing, and people are really surprised by how much initiative you're willing to take. And I guess that's one of the best things about it. And then also just hearing the conversation, today in class, I was really happy. I mean, although it's they're not agreeing, but the disagreement is kind of what I am proud about, is that teenagers care enough to speak their mind, and they're aware to some degree of what's going on in the world. No, I think it'll definitely stick with people. I mean, it stuck with me long enough that I decided to pursue it.
And next time they see the new number from Iraq,
Yeah, it'll mean something new.
they're connected to the faces,
Yeah.
Good.
My name is Dory Dietz. I've worked at Brooklyn Friends School for the past 23 years. I was born and raised a Quaker, and I'm the advisor for the Peace and Social Action Committee, of which Leah is a member. And when Leah proposed after the Brooklyn Parents for Peace Day in the fall, when she proposed that we bring the exhibit, the North Fork People of Conscience exhibit, to Brooklyn Friends, I thought that was a fabulous idea. I knew it would be a lot of work, and I was I knew that I was aware that it would bring controversy and sort of discussion among students, and I think that that's a very powerful thing to do for teenagers and for other people as well, because the pictures themselves, to put a face on every person who's died in this war, is a very powerful reminder of what war does to human beings. I think the reality of the exhibit was a little different than I had expected. Maybe I'm not sure quite what I expected, but once all the posters were up, it was incredibly powerful to see face after face after face after face, and to realize that every single one of these people, these young people and older people, had left behind somebody that they cared about and that they loved and who loved them. And I think it just put a human face onto what I feel is not only a controversial war, but a war based on falsehood. The best thing about the 3 days, I think, was having those people present in our community, and also hearing the reaction of students who had been warned but also had no idea what it would really be like. And their reactions ranged from being, this is really terrible, this makes me very unhappy, to, I think it's time that we recognized who people are who were killed, and that we recognize that this war is not a good thing for our country. I wasn't either surprised or disappointed about the reactions that people had, because I was expecting a wide range of reactions. I think what upset me most was seeing how many people had died who were older, whom I felt did not want to go into this war, who were members perhaps of the National Guard or members of the reserves, who never expected to go back, and also people who never expected to go in the first place. It's not like this is a draft war the way Vietnam was, where everybody's been sent. It just happened. And I think for the reaction in terms of our community, it just was so varied that it was I both expected it and yet was a little in awe of it. The minute you can get people talking about something, I think that's where the power in an exhibit like this lies. I'm not sure whether it will have a long-term effect on kids. I think that sometimes things like this percolate and last inside a long time, but they may never come out. It may never come out as something verbal or not verbal, but in the long run, I think it will have some effect. I just don't know what that effect will be. You don't want that, that's fine. Business kind of things tend to be like leadership kind of cards.
Actually, I didn't even know it was canceled. I started, I just threw a damn paper. Oh my god. Did you see how little I took it and she freaked out? Oh, you hit kind of hard on them. You better repeat that. Nothing. Ink just won't stick. So the name was on. Ew. That's what he said. Ew. I'm just saying what you said. You said I'll stick it. No, I said I'm gonna make an older person. I don't speak with devils, man. Yeah. I can find one. I was trying to read you.
It looks like Wesley. Oh my god. Oh, I want to go to Hawaii.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
My brother. You have a brother? Yes, I have a brother. I think he told me that. Yeah, he's older than you, right? Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care. No, sis. On my nose. Oh, mocking you. Oh, boy. Don't do that. Whoa! How would you say right in Spanish? Oh, how you say right in Spanish?
People often ask us, why do we do this? Why do we update, maintain this memorial, the Honor the Fallen Memorial? It is, after all, a huge amount of work. The answer is simple. We want people to understand the consequences of war. We want them to know that death and injury are the inevitable ramifications of war, and that war kills real people, people just like us, and destroys families just like ours. We want people to face the war. We have learned that the pictures and the words describing each dead soldier speak for themselves, loudly and clearly enough to allow each viewer's ears to hear their message. We have learned that we ourselves are unnecessary. We have learned that the exhibition's most important power comes from offering a place for unimpeded, unmediated meditation and reflection. We have learned that the exhibition is at its most powerful when we allow it to be simply a memorial, rather than to shape it into a conduit, subtle or not, for anti-war or other messages. We have learned that the less weight we place on the pictures, the more they are freed to tell their own story. We have seen that we should be no more than presenters, that it is not for us to intervene in the relationship between the viewer and the panels. When we remove ourselves from this relationship, we free the viewer to engage in a personal reflection on the loss of life unfolded before him or her, a reflection that is as personal as the action that may follow from it. If we remember what we have learned, we will fulfill our purpose to bring to full consciousness the consequences of war.
especially on every like inch of the walls on the second and third floor. I didn't like seeing it. I wouldn't have objected to it as much if it was on a lower scale. I wouldn't have minded it as much. I probably would have taken a look at it, observed it, and probably would have given my thoughts about it. I wouldn't have such a negative approach to it if it was on every wall that I go on every day.
When you see it on such a huge scale, it just gives you this initial reaction that like it's intended. The intention is not to honor the soldiers. The intention is to shock you.
I think that it's awesome. This memorial. I think that it needs to be this big. It needs to be in your face. It has to be. Like a lot of people, when we were putting it up, people were like, "Oh my God, what are people going to think? The Republicans are going to be really upset. People are going to be shocked and really upset about this." So what? Like, you have to be upset. Why shouldn't we be upset that all these innocent people are being killed? We should be upset by it, and if we're not, then we should recognize it so that we become upset about it, so that we can want to do something to change it. Because like I said before, it stinks for us because this is our generation and this is now going to be in our hands. And if people don't care about it and don't have things in their face this big on such a large scale, seeing it.
Today's Wednesday. Are you still angry, or has your emotions changed?
I mean, I've gotten used to seeing it. I don't notice it as much as the days have gone on. But I still, when I'm walking through the hallways, so I'll read oh wow, this person died on my friend's birthday.
So initially I was surprised, but it wasn't for the reason that I was surprised to see all these faces, because I feel like as children, or as teenagers in the age that we live in, I just feel like we've been really, really desensitized to this sort of violence and to the stuff that we see, because in the media every day we do see lots of images of death and stuff, and we see reports from war, and I feel like it's kind of lost on us. The issues don't really matter in our country anymore. It's sort of boiled down to just party versus party, Democrat versus Republican. And it's people just see the world in two colors, like I said before. People see the world in red and blue. And it's not really even about the issues anymore. It's not about the people who died or about why we're in the war. It's just about sort of proving your point, almost.
Personally, I didn't like this. When I first came in there and one day, I didn't like having...
Dedication, sensitivity, and skill produced this documentary for us.
I helped set it up on Sunday, and I was working mainly on the third floor, and by the time we had one wall completely done, I just kind of took a step back to look at it, and I really didn't think that I was going to get really sad and emotional about it, but I didn't get sad. I got really angry, and honestly, I haven't followed up that much with the war. I know what is going on, but Larry said, the girl during Quaker meeting, I haven't really let myself understand exactly what it means.
But you became angry because
it's so many people, and this is nothing compared to what it is. It really isn't. And I wasn't looking at the faces and reading the names as oh, this was a soldier. And it's true, you think soldiers choose to go to war and they choose to fight for their country, but no, these are regular people. And they're what has the outcome of this war been? A lot of people are wondering, then what's the good of it? This is the outcome, that's it. Nothing has been resolved except a lot of people have died.
So after 2 days
and feeling upset about it, then nothing's gonna ever change, because who else is gonna fix it? We're the people in this country. We're going, this is our generation. It's happening during our time. We have to do something about it, otherwise nothing can be done.
Because it's so much, it almost feels like you're being manipulated to go to one side. But everything in life that's such a big deal. There's big things and small things. And it's just another emotion to experience, and after you feel it, after the shock is worn off, you start to synthesize why were you so either insulted by it being in your face, or why you thought it was so great to see this, it's opening your eyes, or it's forcing you to wake up. But I didn't find it offensive. When I was looking at it, I was happy it was there, because I don't like looking at most of the junk that's on our walls in school. And this, it seemed so so like, you know, connected to the rest of the world, like, because obviously this is a private school and it's very small, and most of the things people think of.
4 months ago, at the Brooklyn Peace Fair, we, the North Fork People of Conscience, a small group of activists from the North Fork of Long Island, installed the Honor the Fallen Memorial, an exhibition of large panels, each holding the names, faces, and obituaries of 18 American soldiers who have been killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. At that time, there were 160 panels. Today, there are many more. Leah, a senior at Brooklyn Friends School, who volunteered to help with the installation, contacted us a week or so later to ask if we would consider bringing the exhibition to her school. What you are about to see is the end of this story. You will see the panels in the hallways of the high school, where they remained for 3 days, and you will hear the students and teachers talk about the effect the exhibition had on them. All the North Fork People of Conscience are the custodians of the exhibition. This project represents a wonderfully harmonious collaboration between us, the Peace and Social Action Group at Brooklyn Friends School, and Conscience Films,